As an art educator, I'm concerned with helping everyone in developing their visual literacy, to engage in visual interpretation and authentic artistic expression beyond coloring books and emoticons. Everyone can learn to see by taking the time to read any image for meaning and relevance. To facilitate this process, I've developed an accessible method, form plus theme plus context, FTC, a balanced way of seeing, that I'll discuss in this video. Art is a visual language. In today's visual world, especially, it is not enough to believe what you see, but you must also understand what you see. And that was said by Leonardo da Vinci, and it's still true today. Art is related to other subjects. Like French or Spanish, art is a language that can be learned and understood. It is a form of communication that one can learn to read and speak through study and practice. Reading art means understanding a visual statement. Speaking art means creating a visual statement. When art seems strange or meaningless, it is only that this language is yet to be understood. Perhaps a good metaphor for exploring a work of art is the act of eating an artichoke. You can't just eat it without preparing it and carefully peeling the layers until finally you can consume its heart and flavor or essence. This takes time, but the process can be truly worth it. Besides, most works of art just sit there in the museum or public spaces. As viewers, we need to actively explore the layers of meaning. To fully understand art and other phenomena, through appreciating it and making it, we need to look at three qualities that contribute to the integrity of a work of art, and do it with a sense of balance. A balanced approach to form plus theme plus context of an artwork helps learners create as well as discern layers of meaning in visual language. Form, or how the work is, helps us discern the artist's many structural decisions embedded in the creative process that leads to a final product. This means the things that we can see by looking at the work when we discover visual evidence. Theme is what the work is about, and it addresses what the artist expresses. What's the big idea? And what's the expressive viewpoint and relationships? So with theme is what we can discern from the visual evidence we discovered under form. Finally, context. When, where, by whom, for whom, and importantly, why the art was created and valued, reveals the genuine nature of the artwork by probing and investigating the conditions for and under which the art was created and valued. Often, what we can't see and need more information and can inspire us to do more research. And certainly that's doable in this Google age. So I asked the question, how does a balance of formal, thematic, and contextual qualities of art reveal its layers of meaning? FTC considerations can help viewers create art and respond to art that is authentic, deep, and meaningful. The FTC palette is designed to activate thinking. It's a visual organizer that builds understanding and connections, reveals discoveries, and inspires deeper inquiry. This single-page tool provides specific, quality-based criteria for exploring a work of art. Keep in mind that one can draw connections between the different FTC columns to create a mental weaving of meaning. Let's take a look at this artwork. I'm sure it's familiar to many of you. Your students may have seen it or something like it in an Asian seafood restaurant mural, or a shower curtain. But I'm sure many of you have seen this work, and I wonder how many of you know the name of it? How many know the name of the artist? How many know the name of the media and the date, etc.? Well, here's all the information that I needed in my art history class. And what I'd like to do is have us look at, go much deeper and look at the FTC. Let's take a look and see much more than that label identification information. So we can start with the form and notice that this work, the composition of this work, is asymmetrical. It's horizontal. The art elements include lines, curves, dots, textures, values, warm and cool colors. Design principles that you might find include dominance, asymmetry, repetition, contrast, patterns, rhythm, positive, negative space, unity, variety, and scale. The 2- and 3-dimensional qualities involve the breakup of boats and waves that break up the 2D, and the 3D depth is created by the distant mountain, Mount Fuji. The size and scale, it is approximately 12 by 15 inches. And the media, or the materials, it's a color woodblock print. The processes involve relief printing, multiple layers of color, registration, but a collaborative approach as well. And certainly the artist had the skills of drawing, wood engraving, and design. The style of this work is ukiyo-e, pictures of the floating world. And the other thing I could add about the form is to let you know that this is part of a series called 36 Views of Mount Fuji, and that the artist created over 15 volumes of manga known as random sketches. So if we look at the thematic qualities, we want to see the big idea. Is it high drama? Is it struggle or turbulence, power of nature, earth versus the sea? We can note that the subject matter is a seascape, a kind of landscape, and the viewpoint or perspective is dramatic scale of man versus the sea. In fact, if we take a look closely, we notice that all of the tiny, faceless little human beings are in pairs, which makes sense for how they would move that boat forward. And we can also look at many art historical references, including the Japanese print tradition, ukiyo-e, Raft of the Medusa, Copley, Watson and the Shark, Homer. There are many, including Jennifer Bartlett, who did a work actually based on this print. We also can note literary sources that address that overwhelming power of water: Noah's Ark, Jonah and the Whale, Moby Dick, the Odyssey, and we could certainly look at music, theater, dance, and especially film. Films such as The Poseidon Adventure, Jaws, Perfect Storm, The Endurance, Fantasia, and The Life of Pi. I have to note that in terms of Fantasia, the way that Mickey's hands are moving are very much like the wave, the large wave in front of the work. We could also relate to other subject areas in terms of concepts such as balance, epic stories or legends, oceanography, weather patterns, battles at sea, collaboration against odds, and endurance. Finally, we can look at contextual qualities. When was this work done? Well, it wasn't done in 1 year. It was done over a period of time from 1826 to 33. Where? In Japan, a set of islands. By whom? Hokusai. Hokusai was a painter and wood engraver, and we can learn about him from this illustration of his self-portrait that he did at the age of 83. And this self-portrait has his image, but also the following writing. From the age of 6, I had a mania for drawing the shapes of things. When I was 50, I had published a universe of designs, but all I have done before the age of 70 is not worth bothering with. At 75, I'll have learned something of the pattern of nature, of animals, of plants, of trees, birds, fish, and insects. When I'm 80, you shall see real progress. At 90, I shall have cut my way deeply into the mystery of life itself. At 100, I shall be a marvelous artist. At 110, everything I create, a dot, a line, will jump to life as never before. To all of you who are going to live as long as I do, I promise to keep my word. I am writing this in my old age. I used to call myself Hokusai, but today I sign myself the old man mad about drawing. So in looking at the work and this writing by the artist, we might think, well, what values might our students gain from studying this role model in his work? Perhaps that high standards provide value, persistence pays off, or even getting old might not be so bad after all. Why did Hokusai make this work? What was his intention or purpose? Well, he was involved in doing many series for in-depth artistic exploration of everyday life, and he loved the idea of exploring multiple viewpoints. So in looking at this work and looking at its significance and relevance, we can take a look at a number of aspects, including, sustained problem solving. We can also look and certainly relate to, in our time, the power and the challenge of environmental disasters and survival, and human survival, in collaboration especially. And this would include the 2004 tsunami, global warming, the Haiti earthquake, the Gulf oil spill, the Chilean miner rescue, which you might remember the way that those Chilean miners were rescued was they came up in pairs of 2. The more recent Japanese tsunami and earthquake, Hurricane Sandy, coming closer to home, and even more recently Hurricane Harvey, Irma, and Maria. So these images will remind us of how we might relate to Hokusai's The Great Wave. And certainly thinking about global warming, facelessness, powerlessness, and yet thinking also about hope and stability in the distance, perhaps Mount Fuji, and pulling together. One can, of course, also look at cultural and historical aspects of Japanese values, rituals, and their influence of Impressionism. Finally, we certainly need to identify that this work, The Great Wave, has become an icon in visual culture. We see it all over. I have a luggage tag, a foldable shopping bag, and even found a Hokusai coloring book. If you take a look at my Pinterest board, which I entitled Great Waves, you can see the range of visual uses of this icon in visual culture. And Pinterest helps us be curators as we collect and share visual information. How did the FTC process help you see the big picture? How do the formal, thematic, and contextual elements work together to create meaning? The FTC palette isn't an answer key, but rather a tool that you need not fill in every blank, but rather consider each of the different qualities and their relationships, and work back and forth to discover balance in FTC for greater understanding. It's called a palette for mixing up and making connections, a mind weaving of your own interpretation. And the goal is to lead you to open-ended questions, not answers, as we explore enduring ideas embedded in art forms that have relevance to us today. For example, Japanese novelist Ryo Murakami wrote in the New York Times on March 17th, 2011, "But for all we've lost, hope is the one thing we Japanese have regained. The great earthquake and tsunami have robbed us of many lives and resources. But we who were so intoxicated with our own prosperity have once again planted the seed of hope." Whether using FTC to decode or encode works of art, it is a tool to get closer to understanding art and making connections with complex and rich relationships that help discover visual meaning and ownership of our understanding. If we look at FTC in terms of art theories or traditions, we might actually view modernism as overemphasizing form, postmodernism as overemphasizing theme, and visual culture as overemphasizing context. Balancing form plus theme plus context can lead to deeper understanding through the visual language of art and make it more meaningful and accessible to all. Having explored its FTC, we might think metaphorically about the Great Wave in terms of recent natural devastation resulting from hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria, as well as how human nature, in the most recent Las Vegas massacre, is a challenging force when we observe leadership in our national and local politics. In also looking at our profession and our school systems, how does human collaboration against often great odds help us focus our hope in the future? Being able to read a work of art like The Great Wave helps us develop skills in visual literacy and visual fitness when we envision situations where leadership and action are needed, for which we need to use our creativity and insight.